Hi guys, welcome to VFX Vault. Today I'll be showing you how to motion track inside of Blender. You'll be creating your first VFX shot just like this one. And guys, this is a new YouTube channel, so please support us by liking this video and subscribing. Also on this channel we'll be doing everything VFX tutorials, breakdowns, a lot of those stuff. So if you're interested in visual effects, you would I think you should subscribe to our channel. It will help us a lot. So let's quickly jump to the video. Okay, so let's quickly start. So the first thing, I'll just show you some movements. So in Blender, to move around is with your mouse, middle mouse button, and to scroll in, to zoom in and zoom out is just with your scroll wheel. Just scroll on your wheel. Okay, so yeah, that's basically movement, and to pan is shift and your scroll wheel. So basically your scroll wheel does all the movements, and your left button and right button are for selections and properties. So let's quickly start with the VFX shots. So go over here and VFX, perfect. Okay, so we can go over to open and locate your video clip. This is the video clip I'll be using, and I would make sure to put this in the description. So now you can see over here our shot. The aspect ratio is 1920 by 1072. So we can go over to this button, you can go over here, the output properties, and just put in 1920 by 1072. And over here you can see 30 frames per second. So change this from 24 to 30 frames per second. Now you can click setting frames for Blender to make the length of our timeline be the same as the length of our video, but I want this to be like a 5-second shot. So basically I'll just set this to 160 frames and 100 oh, hold on, let's do the math. So basically 24 frames per second is 24 frames over here is 1 second, but since we've changed it to 30 frames per second, so for 5-second shots we should have 30 times 5, which is 150. So for 5 seconds of a video, 150 frames. Okay, so I have 160, so this should be 5 seconds and some nanoseconds. Great, so let's just quickly start tracking the shot. Video into its memory. Great, now we need to add tracking markers. Why are we tracking anyway? We are tracking our video so that Blender can calculate for the movement of our camera and adjust it and copy that movement to our digital camera. So it takes the movement of your actual camera and puts that same movement on our digital camera. So we need to track in order to do that. So to add a tracking marker, you go to a place, look for things in the shot that stay still and that don't move and have high contrast, and click control. You hold control and just left click, control left click. And now to track frame by frame, we can click this button or click alt and the arrow keys to track, but we also have a faster way by doing the automatic track. Just click this and it tracks it forward, and you can see we don't even know where it is. To bring that back, I can just click the period on the numpad. You can see this is not good, and I said I want my video to be 5 seconds, so I'll set the end frame to 160. So 160 is when to end, so it doesn't really matter, it has tracked up to that number. So we need to add another tracking marker, so control and click, and I'll just Ctrl T to track it again, but you can see it's always going out of frame. So I'm going from beginning to end is shift and arrow buttons to go to the first frame, and shift and arrow to the last frame. So just hold control, click, and click L to lock this. So this will put it in the center of the videos, basically stabilizing it. So Ctrl T to track, and great. Now there is also another feature in Blender which is called the text features. This automatically finds trackers for you, so just go over here and click detect features. Now in the detect features, you can reduce the margin to maybe 10 and threshold to 0.1 and distance to 100, and basically just reducing this number will bring up more trackers for you. And now you need to remove any tracker that's on a moving object. You can see these people are moving, so any tracker on a moving person or target should be removed. So select all the trackers and Ctrl T to track them, and you can see basically Blender is tracking video. So just let Blender do the tracking. This shouldn't stay too long. You can see it's almost done, it's halfway done. You can also see over here that some of the tracks are moving out of the shot, but it's okay. You can see over here there are no tracking markers, and we don't like that. So I would click the text features at the last frame, and this time I'll select A and I'll track them backwards. So shift Ctrl T to track backwards. So those places that are empty also get trackers. Yeah, you can see they are tracking. They're tracking nicely, and they are basically done. So escape if you want to stop the tracker. Now let's go over here and click graph. So now you can see there's a red line and a green line. The red line is the horizontal representation on a plane. So the horizontal movements represented on a plane is the X, and you can see they have a pattern. So some of them do not follow that pattern. Now we need to delete those ones because those ones are bad tracks. Just quickly delete them. Okay, perfect. So now what we need to do is go back to this place, clip, and right over here we can select those that are on moving people or anything in a moving objects, delete them, and I'll just go through the shot, and things that are moving objects you should remove them. Okay, so I am done just removing things on moving trackers on moving objects. So now we need to solve our camera motion. So if you have the information of your camera, the sensor width and the focal length, can put them here, but I don't have any of those information. So I will just go over to solve, click keyframe, focal length, optical center, and all the trackers selected, solve camera motion. Perfect. So now you can see that the camera is being solved. So now you can see that this is done, solving camera or camera motion. And if you see here, we have a solve error of 0.43, which is a good solve error. Anything below 1 is actually pretty good. But if you have a terrible solve error, which you of course definitely have sometime eventually, you can fix that just over the clip display. You can check info, and now we can see all these things which we don't want. So zoom in and be checking your tracks. For those that have a terrible self error, you can see 0.3, 0.3. So trackers with 0.4 pixel error, average error, you can delete them, or you can just let Blender do this for you with the over here, clean up, and can set maybe whatever frame you want. I'll just leave it 0, and then set maybe an error of 1, and click clean tracks. If this is set to select clean tracks, you can see there are actually 3 tracks, 5 or 6 tracks in my shot have a solve error of 1. So I'll just click X and delete them, and I can solve a camera motion, but this time the focal length, optical center, and keyframe, I'll turn them off and solve camera motion again. So just wait for it, and it's done, and you can see it has reduced this by a lot. So now what we need to do is set as background and set up tracking scene. Now we can see all our trackers. So Alt A to the selector. You can select 3 trackers on the floor, 3 trackers that are on the floor, and just go over here and click floor, and here, and click one of the tracker, set origin, and maybe another tracker, and set scale. Now we can go on this plus button here, go to layout, and our camera is so not aligned properly. So I can click 3 on the numpad. If you don't have the numpad, you can actually, I'll click 1 on the numpad. If you don't have this, you can just go over here, click one of these buttons to move. So 1 is the y-axis, so I would click the y. If you don't have a numpad, that's the way you can do this, and Control Alt and 0 on the numpad. If you don't have a numpad, you can also go to align active camera to view. Under the viewpoint, camera, where was that? Okay, align view and align active camera to view. So I would zoom in a bit, Control Alt and 0. Now I would just go over here again and click one of this tracker and set origin. So that will just set everything, and you can increase the distance maybe by 5, and select 2 trackers, set scale, but 5 is too much, so maybe 1, no, 2, and set scale. I'll just click 1, set scale. Perfect. Now I can go to the layouts. When we play our video, this should be perfectly tracked. I don't know, for some reason the viewpoint. So if your viewport is slow, you can go over here, frame dropping, set this to frame dropping, and when you play, it should play better. And our video is nicely, and we can play. Let's quickly save this document, Blender project. I'll call this tutorial, and saving is Ctrl S. So tutorial, save Blender file, and this will quickly save this for you. So okay, so you can see that our video is perfectly tracked, but Blender has added a lot of things which we don't need. We don't need a lot of this stuff, so we need to get rid of it. So over this background is called a collection. You can X to delete, select the ground, delete, select the light, delete, and we can leave the foreground, the camera, and the cube. If we play, you can still see that this is tracked perfectly. Now over here, this is called the view layer. You can go over to background and click on this to remove, so we have just the foreground. So let's get down to business. I'm going to change this to cycles render, but because I prefer using cycles look looks more realistic, so I use cycles. And you can see this doesn't have a texture, but don't worry, we'll get over there. So now what we need to do is delete this cube, or we can keep it, Ctrl Z to hide, Ctrl Z to undo, H to hide, Alt H to unhide everything, H to hide. So I would add another plane. There's a reason I said we shouldn't use that plane, because that plane has a ton of stuff we don't need. And now we can go over here, file, append, desktop, wherever you have your model. I will make sure to keep the model in the description, so you just have to download it. Other, so Ironman source, and I have this is the one you should click, so just keep clicking it, just click on it. And yes, let's load in both collections, collection 1, collection 20, A to select all, and then append. And now you can see this has a lot of stuff. We don't actually need any of this, like we don't need this, we don't need this. So what we'll do is select our plane. You can see it's added a concrete. Now there are two planes, concrete. So let's select our original plane, which is called plane, and our camera. And if we zoom in, we can select this. Over here you can see a crown on his head. Let's select that crown and his body, and just click Ctrl I to invert the selection, so the things we didn't select the first time will be there, and X and delete this. So now what we have is the rig of our character, for Ironman character, and our body. So I would go over here to bone properties. Yes, this is called object data properties, with the rig selected, the skeleton kind of things. And I would turn off all this just by clicking on one of it, and I would turn on the things which I would need by holding shift. I can hold this, or by the way, to select two objects you have to hold this and shift. Perfect. So I will select the rig, hold this, shift, and hold this. I don't need that one, so I can select it twice. Basically you want to enable this for, yeah, hold shift, the first two, the last one, and the middle one over here. So now when you click this, you can see we have our Iron Man. And now we select that rig and make sure it's on the ground plane. Select the plane to see. Perfect. So now we need to get rid of some of the things in these collections. So also to get into the numpad, the camera, you have to click this, or it's 0 on the numpad. So I will select this and delete this, select the meta rig, which we don't need. Collection 1, delete. Cube, which is the cube, but we don't need it actually, so delete. Camera, no, we need it. So basically we're keeping this 3. I'll just delete this collection 20, so everything is in the same collection. Perfect. So I would select this 2 and just drag it into the foreground collection. So when we close this, so foreground collection. So now make sure you select everything and put them into the foreground. So now we have our rig. What I'll do is select this, and actually I'll click Shift A and add in an armature human meta rig. So basically you won't be able to see this. In order to see this, you have to go to Edit, Preferences, and under add-ons search for Rigify. So just type in Rigify and turn this on and save, so that you don't have to do this anytime you load Blender. So now just click S, scale this. So Shift A, add the human meta rig, and I'll select this and scale this to that. Okay, now let's see. The way I turn this on, you can go over here and turn this on, X-ray mode, turn this on, but the way I did this is Shift Z. So Shift Z just to do that. So now this should be good. So this plane is important, we need it for shadow. So I'll go over here under this button, the object properties, and under visibility I would set it to shadow catcher. So basically this reflects this casts shadow of any object. Perfect. So yeah, this is what we want. Now we can go to render view. I'm using cycles, and when you click on this, you can see we have an Ironman model, but we don't have a background. So I would go over to this project's world properties. The color, I'll add an environment texture. Open, desktop, go to wherever I have an environment texture. So basically you can find environment texture. So at places like HDR, Haven, I would put a place where you can get some of this HDR. So open, clip, and there. Now when we click see rendered, we have a texture, and it's brighter because it's casting light, but we still don't have a background. In order to bring our background, what you need to do is go under the render properties, film, transparent. So Z to rendered, or you can go over here, just select here, and there we have our Ironman right there. So Alt A to deselect, but you can see it's too huge. So the reason why I put this over here is so we can know the scale which we need. So S to scale, we can scale this to the rig, but I'll just do it slightly above the rig. See rendered. And now this looks more realistic. And now we need to add some lighting. We can add some lighting. So shift A to add a light. I would add a sunlight, and I would raise this up, G on the y-axis, and I would point this with this. Make sure you're using the yellow, and make sure it's touching, it's pointing towards model. And when you click Z, rendered. Now this will add its own light and will make shadows be cast on. Actually, I think I should rotate this, because looking at this shot, I think the light's coming from over here. The small lights over here. From here, the lights coming from here. So I would add that fake light. So let me just erase this. Okay, so basically you can see the shadow over there, but I think this is pretty okay. So yes, to me this is okay, and you can start animating your rig. Can animate your rig. Can go to pose, Control F, go to pose mode, go over here. I can animate this, maybe select where you want it to be, basically do some animation, something like that. Animation is a whole other process on its own, so let's not go to that place. We can see Ironman is really cool, so I'll just undo all these things I did. Perfect. And so there we have it, but we're not done, because Blender has actually done this for us, but we did a lot of stuff. So I'm just gonna turn off the noise in over here. You don't really, I'll just delete, in fact let's just delete everything Blender added first and make sure this use nodes is turned on. So now shift A, input, make sure add a movie clip. So nodes are a nice way to work, so just X delete, shift A, add in a movie clip, and select your clip. Now shift A, output, and select composite. Now whatever is plugged into the composite, that is what you will have as your final video. So shift control click to add in a viewer. If you don't have the viewer, go to the edit preferences and search node wrangler. So this will give you other options. And now we need to add in a render layer, input, render layer. If you can't remember, just search this, and we need to overlay. So let's just quickly render one of this image. So click this button to render an image. So you just have to wait for this to render. So you don't really need it to finish rendering, you just need the viewport, you just need to see it to edit. So I just cancel that, and we can shift A, we can shift click on the render layer to view this. Now I want to overlay this onto the movie clip. So shift A, color, alpha over, and connect this to this, and shift control to view the alpha over, and we have our Ironman in our scene. Pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So yeah, that is a way to do that. Now we can actually color grade our scene as well. Shift A, the color, can add color balance. Just drag and drop to the composite, then shift click to the color balance. To the viewer, shift click on the color balance. This should bring up the viewer. So I would just take up the blue on the factor. You can see it's updated. Bring down our yellows like so, and maybe a little bit more yellow. Yeah, so this is how we motion track. And in our next tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make a crater effect in Blender. So make sure to subscribe if you want to see that, and we can go ahead and render. There are a lot of tutorials on how to render in Blender, so I'm just going to skip that part because that was just